Hello everyone, like a year ago I did a deck tech for my Empress Galina Theft deck, so I figured I'm going to do a revamped model of it. So to start off, Empress Galina is a 5 mana 1/3 with pay blue, tap it, gain control of target legendary permanent. It's pretty self-explanatory. The whole deck wins by stealing your opponent's things, and that's kind of it. So I'm going to go through quick. The deck runs a total of 35 lands. I have the stack of just basic islands, but I'm going to go through the non-basic lands. Lonely Sandbar, you just cycle it away. Myriad Landscape, there's no real ramp in mono blue, so yeah, you pay 2 mana, sack it, get 2 islands to the field tapped, do it to someone's end step, good way to get land. Halimar Depths, it's like a Sensei's top, kind of, for one time only. Enters tapped, look at the top 3 cards, rearrange them, put them back in any order. It's kind of it, nothing fancy. I just think it's better than, I think you can slot out an island for it. Reliquary Tower, just to have no max hand size. Thespian Stage. So just to reiterate really quick, I want to say, the whole way this deck wins, it cannot win on its own. It just can't. The way this deck wins is by taking your opponent's cards and beating them with their own cards. The idea is that you can remove something, right, because it's problematic, like a Vorinclex is problematic. However, it's not problematic if you have a Vorinclex. So instead of killing it, you take it for yourself. Thespian Stage kind of just does that with lands. If someone has like a really good land, like a Nykthos or whatever, you know, a good value land, you can just have that land with Thespian Stage. Tectonic Edge, there's a couple land destruction cards in this deck because one card called Homeward Path, which says tap, target, or every player basically gains control of all permanents they own, destroys this deck. It kills it, nothing to do about it. So this is just kind of a pseudo budget. Well, it started off as pseudo budget at least. Mono blue theft. This is just a way to get rid of a problematic land if someone has it. Arch of Orazca. You're mono blue, you're usually going to be fine on colors. You know, you can basically pay 5 mana to draw a card at someone's end step. This fell. Soul Devi Excavation, really weird card. It enters tapped unless you sacrifice an island. It's buried, which means it's destroyed if you can't sack an island. It taps for 1 and a blue, and then you can pay 1 and tap it to essentially scry 1. Minimo, School at Water's Edge. You know, get a blue, pay a blue, untap target legendary permanent, use your commander, steal another thing. Castle Vantress, just good value land. It's just there to scry when you need it. Nixos, Shrine of Nyx. We're playing a mono blue deck. We're going to have a lot of mono blue pips, so this is usually going to tap for a bunch. Arcane Lighthouse. We can't target our opponent's shit if they have hexproof. This is just a way to get around that. All right, we're done with lands. Now for the big meat and cheese of the deck. There's no, like, order to this other than the lands I just put aside. We're mono blue. We're going to have some counter spells. Fellwar Stone is just a good mana rock. And it's important that it is a mana of a color a land an opponent could produce. Because if we steal someone's thing and it has, like, an activated ability, mono blue doesn't have, like, you know, obviously, like, green colors. So if it has, like, an activated ability, we can, like, use this as a way to still get it done. Cage Sun, islands tap for 2 mana. Creatures get +1/+1. It's just kind of a mana doubler. Rite of Replication, just a quick way to take a copy of an opponent's creature. They have, like, a really good creature effect. We might as well take it or get 5 of it. Talent of the Telepath. 4 mana, target opponent reveals the top 7 cards of his or her library. You may cast an instant or sorcery from among them without paying its mana cost. Then the player basically puts the rest in the grave. If you have 2 or more instants or sorceries in your graveyard, you take the top 2 instant. You basically pick 2 instants or sorceries from the 7. In theory, worst case scenario, 4 mana, target player mills 4. You know, we're just going to pick the deck we think with the most instants or sorceries. Best case scenario, you start hitting Expropriates, Time Warps, big mana spells, removal, whatever. Agent of Treachery. Can't really have a theft deck without Agent of Treachery. When he enters battlefield, gain control of target permanent. At the beginning of your end step, if you have 3 or more permanents that you don't own, draw 3 cards. So Ancestral Recall at someone's end step, you just take whatever you'd like when he comes into play. Evacuation. There's no real nukes in mono blue. This is kind of it. Bounce all creatures. Mirage Mirror, just temporarily getting the best thing on the board. That's kind of really it. Swiftfoot Boots, give our commander haste, so we can tap it immediately if we need to, but more or less it's just giving him hexproof. It's for protection. That's kind of it. Like, we want to protect what we steal. Expropriate, not really mono, not really a big blue deck if you're not playing Expropriate. Basically, the reason it's in the deck is not for the extra turns. It's mainly to stay on theme with the stealing, but more often than not, you're taking extra turns because more turns means more stealing. Spectral Deluge is a new card I added to the deck. 6 mana, you can foretell it if you want. Return each creature your opponent controls with toughness X or less to its owner's hand, where X is the number of islands you control. We're mono blue, we have a lot of islands. You just get rid of all the creatures, basically. Omniscience, not really great in the deck. It's very high costed and very hard to get out, but it's just fun. I just had it, no real reason. Desertion, it's a fun counter spell. Counter target spell. If it's an artifact or a creature spell, instead of going to the grave, it goes to your field instead. So you basically just steal it. Volition Reigns. This is the kind of main way our deck works. We have a lot of these kind of enchant permanent, you control enchanted permanent effects. This is just one of them. This one is good because when it enters the battlefield, if it's tapped, you untap it. Because how often is someone going to be like, oh, I'll steal your Soul Ring. Oh, I'll tap it in response. Nope, you get it untapped. Thought Vessel, Mana Rock, no max hand size. That's really it. Preordain, it's just a mono blue, scry 2, then draw a card. It's just good. Helps with deck consistency. Gets you cards, sets up your draws. That's really it. It's just a good card overall. Thieving Skydiver. 2 mana, 2/1 flyer. When it enters, kicker, enters the battlefield. If it was kicked, gain control of target artifact with CMC X or less. And if it's an equipment, attach it to it. Even worst case scenario, you can just be like, XS1, give me your Soul Ring, or you can even, you just steal shit. You steal like an artifact if you want. Thassa, Deep Dwelling. So this is kind of important. So Thassa, Deep Dwelling, indestructible as long as your devotion to blue is less than 5, it isn't a creature. At the beginning of round step, exile up to 1 other target creature you control and then return that to the battlefield under your control. So this is important. Let's use, where is it? Volition Reigns as an example. If you destroy Volition Reigns, right, because it's no longer an enchanted permanent, it goes back to its owner's control. However, if I blink a creature I steal with Thassa, Volition Reigns falls off. But since it goes to the battlefield under my control, I still keep that creature with no enchantment on it. That's funny, and that's how that works. Plus, sometimes it's just a 6/5 indestructible blocker. Rhystic Study, it's good draw. That's really it. Nexus of Fate. Again, kind of like Omniscience, I more or less just had it. That's really it. Nexus of Fate is a 1-card infinite, and no one can change my mind. You just need Nexus of Fate and a little bit of luck. As Foretold. It's good to get it out early. We're playing mono blue, so we're not usually wanting to tap out completely during our turn. So As Foretold helps us get our shit out there. And, and also if it eats a removal spell, it eats a removal spell. It's fine. It was only 3 mana. It's no big deal. But the upside's very good. Entrancing Melody. Pay X. Gain control of target creature with CMC X. Pretty simple. Other Thassa. God of the Sea. Indestructible 5/5 sometimes. At the beginning of your upkeep, scry 1. Target creature you control can't be blocked. It's mainly there for the scry 1. And a big indestructible blocker. We don't really need to sneak in damage too often. But having the scry 1 and being consistent, because again, our board state is only going to be good as our opponent lets it be. So we need to constantly be looking at the top of our deck and checking out things and setting up so we can plan for essentially our next move, because there's no real strategy with this deck. It's essentially take your opponent's big stuff, take their expensive cards, take their big staples, and that's really it. Soul Ring, it's Soul Ring. Corrupted Conscience, gain control target creature. It just gets infect. It can be fun, if you have pingers or Nekusar effects or really any big commander like Galta. It's fun just to give things infect. That's really it. You just take something and you give it infect. Hopefully something big. Blatant Thievery, 7 mana. It's an expensive spell. For each opponent, gain control of target spell permanent that player controls. So basically just take whatever you like from everyone's field. Mind Control. Enchant creature, you control enchanted creature. Sweet and simple. Mana Drain. It's mana drain. I'm not really going to say anything. It's a great counterspell. You get a ton of mana. Clever Impersonator. So there has to be a hard line with stealing and clone effects with this deck because you can only steal so much and it can only be so consistent. Clever Impersonator kind of helps us, like, it's more or less the clone part of the deck. I count it as stealing, but it really isn't. But again, we just want our opponent's best things, no matter how you look at it, and Clever Impersonator is a way to get one of their best things. Search for Azcanta, begin your upkeep, look at the top card of your deck, you may put it in your grave. It's basically Surveil when you think about it. So begin your upkeep, Surveil 1, and then if you control 7 or more cards in your grave, you can flip Azcanta. It taps for a blue, pay 3 mana, look at the top 4 cards of your deck, reveal a non-creature, non-land, put it in your hand. That's really it. Leyline of Singularity. This card's good for a couple reasons. One, because tokens don't really exist with this card on the field. Because they're legendary, really have to sacrifice it. But the main spice with this card is Empress Galina. Gain control of target legendary permanent. Well, all non-land permanents are legendary, so you can take whatever you'd like now. Acquire, search target opponents for an artifact card, and put that card into play under your control. Worst case scenario, you're taking a Soul Ring. Everyone's got one. That's your worst case scenario, where you take like a Mana Rock. Your best case scenario is you're getting like a Blightsteel Colossus or something big and scary, like I don't know, Chromatic Warrior. Just really just their biggest artifact that you might like. Control Magic, probably the best of them. Just 4 mana, you control enchanted creature. It really doesn't get better than that. Solemn Simulacrum. Again, there's no real ramp in mono blue. He's ramp in mono blue. 4 mana, 2/2. When he enters battlefield, get an island, put it into play tapped. And then no one really wants to swing into him because, like, you block and you draw a card. He's great all the time. Sapphire Medallion, again with ramp. No real ramp in mono blue. Making your blue spells cost 1 less is very good. Dig Through Time. Delve, we don't really do anything with our graveyard. We really can't. I mean, maybe like 1 or 2 spell mastery cards, but other than that, we're not doing anything special. And I would really like to pay 2 mana to look at the top 7 cards and put 2 in my hand. Aethersnatch. Gain control of target spell. You may choose new targets for it. So this is interesting because you can target creatures on the battlefield with it or really you can target anything on the battlefield with it. Right, because there are spells. Everything is a spell but a land. You can also take instants and sorceries, or even if they're on the stack, let's say you want to take a Mole Drifter because you want to draw 2 cards. You can do that. You just gain control of it. You take it as if you're casting it. Dream Leash, 5 mana, enchant permanent. Only do it on tapped permanents. You control it. That's pretty much it. Someone swings with a big creature, you can just take it next turn. Narset Parter of Veils. We don't have a lot of creatures. We really don't. This deck... maybe Agent of Treachery is our biggest creature. I don't really know. But we're not winning by beating down. We don't have a lot of creatures, so we have a lot of non-lands and non-creatures. So, ultimately, we have 35 lands. We probably only have like 10 or so creatures. So, we have like 60 cards or 50 or so cards? I'm not good at math. Left in the deck. Plus, our opponents can't draw a bunch. So, that's always good. Stunt Devil, basically like Clever Impersonator, except with Flash, and he only counts as creatures. So someone plays a creature, you can also take that creature. Beguiler of Wills is fun. Tap it. Gain control of target creature with power less or equal to the number of creatures you control. So she's a 5 mana 1/1, which is a terrible rate, but you tap her, and you can gain a creature with basically power 1 or less, or if you have 2 creatures, just 2 or less. And then eventually you start taking more and more creatures, right? It's like, oh, well, gain control of target creature with power 5 or less, or whatever, which is basically everything. Inevitable Betrayal. It is a new card. I have yet to play it, but suspend 3, you can cast it for free with As Foretold. Search target opponent's library for a creature card and put into play under your control. That player shuffles their library. You take a big Eldrazi, you really just take their biggest, scariest, best creature. Commandeer. 7 mana, you're never paying 7 mana for it. Instead, you're going to exile 2 blue cards instead. Gain control of target non-creature spell. You may choose new targets for it. So this is kind of like, you do it like when you're in a tough spot. You're like, oh, I need this non-creature spell to an extra turn spell. Whatever. You pitch 2 blue cards, and it's now yours. Telemann Performance. Very odd card, but basically target player mills until he gets a creature, and then you take that creature. That's really it. They mill cards until they hit a creature, and then you get that creature. Psych Rift, it's Psych Rift. It's a blue nuke, you know. Thrix, he's new. I like the idea of him because, again, most of our like control magics are going to be 5+. We're kind of a big mana deck in a way. Still, 5 mana, Flying Flash, 4/5. Spells you control with CMC 5 or greater can't be countered, and they cost 1 less. So, a cost reducer, and, I mean, honestly, actually, he's probably the biggest creature in the deck. Faerie Artisans. Whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield under an opponent's control, create a token copy of that creature. And then exile all other tokens. So basically, whenever an opponent plays a non-token creature, you're getting a copy of that creature. You're getting its ETB trigger. You're getting everything. It's really, really good. And then when they play another creature, that creature goes away and you get the new creature. Sower of Temptation. Flying 2/2 for 4. When it enters the battlefield, gain control of target creature for as long as you have Sower of Temptation. It's just a pretty good card. Bribery. Search target opponent's library for a creature card. Put it into play under your control. You're just taking their best creature. That's really it. Aethermage's Charm, 3 mana. It's a counter spell, or you draw 2 cards, or you get a Soul Ring or a token or whatever. Very good card. Propaganda. We don't have a lot of creatures. We don't really want people attacking us, so this is a good way to help with that. The Dalkin Shackles. Excellent card. 3 mana. You may choose not to untap it during your untap step. 2 mana, tap it. Gain control of target creature with power less or equal to the number of islands you control, so as long as it means tapped. We're playing mono blue. We have a lot of islands. We just pay 2, tap it, gain control of a creature for as long as we want, or until it dies, or whatever we want to do with it. Take Possession, it's a weird card. It's probably the most expensive control card in the deck. 7 mana, split second, so no one can respond to it. Take Enchant Permanent, you control the enchanted permanent. You just take whatever you'd like. Thorical. This isn't really for a combo of any way. It's more or less, I'm playing mono blue, and it digs. It's like kind of, I look at it like all the other scry cards in the deck. That's really it. You're more or less just like want to dig. You want to get the best thing, and if it can win you the game, cool. Like your upside's winning the game. Your downside is look at the top 2 cards of your deck. You know, put one on top, one on the bottom at the worst. Aura Thief. When it dies, gain control of all enchantments. That's just it. Nyx Lotus, again, we're playing mono blue. It's going to tap for a lot. Mystic Confluence, I love Mystic Confluence. It's an excellent spell. 5 mana to choose 3, and you can choose more than one mode more than once. So counter target spell unless it pays 3. Bounce a creature, draw a card. Worst case scenario, you could just be like, all right, end of your turn, 5 mana, draw 3. Or you can say, like, at the very worst, hey, pay 9 mana your things, or hey, I'm going to bounce all your 3 creatures, or any combination, like, oh yeah, that spell's countered. That's usually how I do it. I'm going to counter your spell, and I'm going to draw 2 cards for 5 mana. It's a very good rate. Mind's Dilation. Whenever an opponent casts the first spell on his or her turn, exile the top card of their deck. If it's a non-land, you can cast it without paying its mana cost. That's really just what you do. You're just like, it punishes your opponents for playing spells, basically. You just get to take something. Tempted by the Orc, a new card. In theory, I like it a lot. 4 mana for each opponent, gain control of up to 1 target creature or planeswalker with CMC 3 or less. That's like pretty much utility creatures in my opinion. Like at worst, you're taking mana dorks. Some commanders you're taking. Again, it's still new. I haven't really done too much with it. Thada Adele, Soul Ring Getter. 3 mana, 2/1 Island Walk. You just attack whoever has an island. They can't block. You take their Soul Ring and you play it. Worst case scenario, they don't have anything you like. You just start exiling like their best artifacts. Swan Song, counter target instant enchantment or sorcery, and they get a 2/2. It's a 1 mana counter spell. It's really hard to beat. Chaos Wand, I love it. 4 mana, target opponent exiles cards until they hit an instant or sorcery, and then you can cast it without paying its mana cost. That's really it, and then all the other cards just kind of go on the bottom in a random order. You're just getting like, you're getting good cards. The worst I've ever had it done is I got like a Bantu's Last Reckoning and my lands didn't untap, but you know, you get Expropriate, you get Time Stretches, you get whatever. Chromatic Lantern, it's a mana rock, and again, kind of like Fellwar Stone, if we take a creature an opponent controls and they have like activated abilities with mana we don't have since we're mono blue, Chromatic Lantern helps us get around it. And finally, Steel Enchantment. You'll never guess what it does. You take control of an enchantment. That's really it. thank you guys for watching. This is my current Empress Galina deck. Thank you guys for watching. Like the video, subscribe, and I will see you guys again next time.